Hello, Helen here. Today's card I'm going to be using the Altenew Rose die set again, and I'm going to be doing an embed technique. So I'm just going to cut out some of the outline roses and leaves with this hot pink card, and I'm going to cut out 4 roses and 6 leaves. This card's going to be a bit experimental. I haven't done something like this before, so I'm going to give it a go. It's not terribly complicated, but it is quite fiddly and time consuming, so you have to have a lot of patience. So if you don't like to spend a lot of time making cards, then this probably isn't a very good one for you to have a go at. I don't really know how to explain what I'm going to do. I'm going to be cutting the roses and leaves out of a white card panel, and then I'm going to embed the pink outlines of the rose and leaves back into that, and then fill in all the inside parts with white, so you're just left with the outline of the rose and the leaves. For this part I'm only keeping the outline, I'm not keeping all the inside bits of the pink part. And once I've got all my die cut pieces cut out, I'll lay them out on a card panel that's just slightly bigger than my card base, just so that I can decide what arrangement I'm going to do. I'm going to do something in the top left hand corner and the bottom right hand corner, and then I can start cutting where I want the roses to sit on my card panel. So I'm just going to cut each flower and leaf out one by one. I'm trying not to overlap them at all. The leaves, I do overlap the stem just a little bit in a couple of cases, but mostly I don't want them overlapping because it's just going to complicate the pieces that I have left to embed later. Now when I'm cutting out the white part, I need to keep every little piece of the parts that I'm cutting out inside of the roses, even the tiny little pieces. So I'm making sure that I keep every rose in its own individual bundle so that I can put all the pieces back into it. The only part I don't need to keep is the outline of the rose and the outline of the leaf, but I'll put them aside because I may use them for another card. I don't want to waste them. So I just carry on cutting all the flowers and leaves out, and then what I'm going to do is put some double-sided sticky paper on the back of it. Out here in New Zealand it's called jack paper, but I'm not sure what it's called in other countries, but any double-sided paper would work for this technique. You're more or less just wanting the sticky so you can put the embeds back in, and then also the other side of the sticky to be able to put it onto your card base when you're finished. So I'll trim down a piece to fit my front panel, and then I'll peel off one side of the release paper and stick the white panel down onto that, making sure it's all stuck down, and then I can start putting the embeds of the pink rose outlines into all the spaces. And really now the rest of the card is just like doing a jigsaw puzzle. You're just putting all the little pieces back in the right place for the leaves and the roses. I found the leaves were one of the most difficult bits because the little vein down the middle kept sitting underneath and it was quite hard to keep it out, and you needed that to keep the leaves in the right place, otherwise the gap in between closed up. But otherwise it was all fairly easy, just very time consuming. So I just had to keep going with the rest of the flowers and leaves. I won't bore you with doing the whole lot. As I said, it was quite time consuming, so I'll skip forward to where I've got the flowers and leaves embedded, and I'll show you the next stage. I then rubbed it all over with the end of my bone folder just to make sure it was all pressed into the double-sided paper and that it was all nice and level. The final thing to do is to do the sentiment. I'm going to do it in silver embossing powder. I'm going to use the Simon Says stamp Thoughtful Messages stamp set. I'm going to do the lovely script birthday at the bottom and then just have happy and some hearts either side of that. I'm using the Misty to do the sentiment because I didn't want to mess up doing the sentiment after all the work I've done on my card panel. So I'm using also the Sweet Petunia grid acetate print off that I did from the website. They've got a download that you can do, and it just helps keep the grid helps keep the sentiment nice and straight. But you'll see that didn't work because I ended up getting my happy a little bit crooked. And this is where you'll see I have a few issues. Firstly, I didn't use the embossing buddy before I stamped, and I get silver embossing powder stuck all over my around my sentiment because I've been touching the card a lot. And the second thing is when I come to heat set it, because it's got the double-sided sticky paper on the back, it buckles really badly. And I was determined I wasn't going to redo the whole thing, so what I ended up doing was put it underneath my craft mat on my desk and walked away and left it for a couple of days. I was not happy. So as you can see, because of the warping, I had a real job trying to get the happy and the hearts underneath the birthday stamped, and that's why I think I ended up getting the happy a little bit crooked. With it being pressed for a couple of days, the warping definitely got a little bit better, although it was still there, but I'm hoping when I take off the backing of the sticky paper and stick it down to my card base, it might flatten it out a little bit more, and that's what ended up happening. So it's all right, I guess, but I'm still not too happy with it. So what I ended up doing was trimming across the top where I'm going to put it onto the card base. And then I stuck that down just by peeling a little bit of the paper down, stuck it where I wanted it to go, and then peeled the rest of the backing paper off and pressed it down onto the card base, and then flipped it over and trimmed away the excess. but you'll see I've got it a little bit to the side, and I've got one side flowers trimmed a lot more than the other, so I ended up just taking about 1/4 of an inch off the other side of the card, and it looks a lot better. So that's the card finished. I think on reflection I would probably do slightly less of the embedding. It wouldn't be such a big job that way. Maybe just in one corner, or just a flower and a leaf or something. Just keep it more simple, because that's really the overall look, is the clean lines of the really fine outline of the rose and leaf that I think makes the card. So just keeping it really simple I think would be what I'd do in the future. So thanks for joining me today. You probably won't want to have a go at this card, but the idea might work with other dies that you might have. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.